tell us more about your yoga practice and what even guided you into yoga in the first place.
Yeah. I actually found yoga when I was 18, which is crazy. My son's 18 right now, and that's so interesting. Somebody had gifted me a yoga book, which I still have. And I was fascinated with the breathing techniques, actually, the pranayama. I was dealing with some anxiety. I was at 18, I was actually, I played around. The school that I went to, there was a lot of drugs. We were like a group of hippie kids, and we were like trying out all these drugs and psychedelics and like way too young. And I learned the hard way that I am this close to the edge already, and I don't need psychedelics or any drugs to get me to that point. I can get there in a 5-minute meditation. Um, and the repercussion of experiencing that, and I think honestly, I was just drinking too much coffee. I was dealing with a lot of anxiety. And I was so fascinated with these pranayama breathing techniques because it would help me fall asleep at night. It would help me deal with anxiety. And I grew up as a ballerina, and it's so crazy to think that you're never taught how to breathe in dance or in ballet. Like it's never spoken about. And I just fell in love with yoga. I started with the breathing and then was fascinated with the whole practice and the traditions and all the poses. And because I had a ballet background, I could easily maneuver my body into these crazy yoga poses. And so it was so fun for me. And then yoga just became a staple in my life. It was just talking about honoring your body, it was just such a beautiful way for me to continue like transmuting energy through my body and like having that movement, but also listening to my body because, again, that was never taught in ballet and dance. It was quite the opposite. It was ignore every body signal and just make it work. And I just loved the practice. I loved that there was no mirrors. I loved that it was an inward practice. I had been staring at myself my entire life, judging myself in the ballet room. And now I had this practice where there's no mirror, there's no judgment. It was like a safe, beautiful place. And I eventually became certified in 2008 just because I loved the practice and I just wanted to learn as much as I could. I didn't really have like intentions on teaching. I just was like, I just wanted to get that stamp of approval. But I've said it a million times, like yoga has saved my life over and over and over. You know, it's just such a beautiful practice.
Beautiful. Yeah, I can imagine as a young woman doing ballet, also modeling. I know you've had experience with modeling and just the pressure that comes along with that and fitting into a kind of a standard. So I love that you were able to find a fluidity through yoga. And I want to touch on the psychedelic moment for a moment. I love that you're talking about this because I don't think we talk about it enough, especially in like the spiritual wellness community. I hit the exact same point where I almost didn't graduate college because I was doing LSD, mushrooms, like daily. I was like always on that high, feeling like it was bringing me closer to my soul's purpose and my path. And who knows, I definitely learned something from it. But I think it can be sometimes like a pacifier for people. I hear some of my clients will come in and say, oh, I just need to go on an ayahuasca retreat. And I'm like, well, let's get into the deeper layers first and foremost, and then maybe let's consider that. But what have you witnessed in our community around psychedelics in general? What do you think about it now?
Because I had such like a bad experience, I would actually get really offended when people would bring up these enlightening moments that they had or these breakthroughs that they had, because I would think back to like my yoga practice and my yoga background where it's like it's a constant process to get to this state of samadhi and enlightenment. It's a constant daily practice, and you have to like indulge in all aspects of your life. And so for someone to tell me that they just like took a pill with some like guru in Topanga or like did something, I would be
Yeah.
like, oh, I would kind of get like really annoyed and almost dismiss those type of people, to be honest with you. Now, recently, I've opened myself up more to it because I do think that there is a place for plant medicine if it's done right. And if you have the right guidance, if you're in the right state of mind, in the right situation, but it is not a replacement for the work that you have to do. And that's what kind of frustrates me. It's like someone taking a diet pill and not changing their diet. It's like you have to like take the steps, and it's not for everybody. I mean, like for me, example, I learned the hard way. Like I am really close to the edge and I almost didn't come back. Like I was in another dimension
Mhm.
completely. So I think that's why, you know, you need to do it in a guided place. And also another friend of mine who is an amazing holistic health practitioner as well, but she's practicing, um, what she's noticing is a lot of people are doing these ayahuasca and even like ketamine now and doing all these kinds of therapy sessions, and they're blowing out their adrenals, and you can see it, like they're losing a part of themselves, and it could get, I think it's a really dangerous place.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for bringing this up. I really haven't talked with anybody about this recently in podcasting. And I think it's just so important to just acknowledge. And I love that you compare it to like a diet pill or a quick fix, and just really getting honest, radically honest with ourselves about, am I really okay? Am I trying to like cover this up and band-aid this up? And you're mentioning, you felt close to the edge. Were you going through like a mental health cycle that was really challenging? And how did you eventually move through that?
Well, I think when I was a kid, the first time I did LSD, I was 15, and I was doing it to escape my reality. I had a very dysfunctional home. I had a lot going on. So right then and there, you're set up for a bad trip. You set yourself up, but you know, I didn't know, I wasn't educated. So it's not that it's not mental health in the aspect of like I was depressed. It's like I almost didn't come back from the trip. Like I was tripping for well over a year after I had taken the initial LSD. So I almost didn't come back. Like you hear those horror stories about people just literally losing it. And I would just constantly felt like I was tripping, and it would come on. It was like a flashback. It would come on in random times. I would be in school, or I would be in dance. I would be on the stage. I remember this one time it would just come up my spine. Anybody that's done LSD, you can know like that feeling of where it just kind of comes up your spine and you get this tingly feeling, and it's like very out of control experience. And I had to use yoga, and like it's kind of the trigger. So I like to look at the good side. It was kind of the trigger for me to like dive deep into psychology and the power of our brain and all my yoga stuff. And like I was diving in to like save myself. I was like, how do I get back to normal? You know, because I don't like the way that I feel. So yeah, it was really scary. And you know, I mean, I could talk about this forever, but like, especially with what's going on now, like you don't know what you're getting, and who knows what I was even taking. Like, who even knows, you know?
100%. Yeah. I mean, because at its purity, it's like, wheat, molded wheat on a grain, but like LSD is definitely not, you're not getting straight up that every time you take it. I imagine that was really scary, not knowing when that's going to come on. I've only heard of one other person having this happen, which Tosh Sultana. She's an amazing artist. I don't know if you've heard her, like prophetic guitarist who had the same kind of psychotic break, ended up in
Oh, wow.
institute, and but became an amazing musician because of the healing she did, like you did with yoga and research. She channeled it into something really beautiful. But so when you're talking about like pranayama and breath work, for people listening who are kind of new to yoga and breath work, can you explain to us a little bit of what's happening when we're paying attention to the breath and activating the breath? Like what's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, I think breath work is like one of the most powerful things. Obviously, breathing is like conscious and unconscious, but when we bring like conscious awareness to it, it just becomes this whole other thing. And like I said before I opened that book, nobody had ever talked to me about breathing. And a lot of people don't realize like that they have shallow breathing, or that they're breathing through their mouth. In yoga, we breathe mostly through our nose. And now there's like so much other research as far as like benefits, as far as like breathing through the mouth can cause like autism and facial structure and like dental issues and all kinds of things. Um, And so just bringing awareness to the breath and like being able to calm it down, noticing like if your inhale is as long as your exhale, or are you giving as much as you're taking, and detoxing and bringing oxygen to the body and just all of that stuff. And it could be like 5 minutes or less, like just taking a deep breath. I mean, we all do it unconsciously. Even when we're going through something, we kind of let go, release a sigh through the mouth. And when we breathe through the mouth, it's like a sign of like letting go and release.
Yeah. I am so happy you just mentioned the mouth breathing, because I've been seeing, people taping their mouths shut and things. I'm like, okay, something's going on here, but I just haven't gotten into the research yet. Wow. Okay. There's a door to open there. There's more to know. Wow. Very interesting.
It's so fascinating. And it's so fascinating that like in yoga, we do all the breathing through our nose. And I'm so grateful that like I learned that, because I've kind of trained myself. But like my son, for example, his teeth are big. So it's hard for him to shut his mouth at night. And what happens is a lot of the children, they're noticing that they're breathing through their mouth, and then their bone structure is shallow, where their chin is back, and then their teeth don't fit into their mouth. So this is like a new thing. This like wasn't happening. All this orthodontic stuff was not happening years ago. So yeah, it's really fascinating.
This is very interesting. This is a whole nother episode.
Yeah.
I would love to ask you though, as well, about your business and, journeying into skincare and just holistic beauty products, and what your journey into launching Golden Secrets look like, and what brought you there.
Yeah, it's so crazy because I never had an intention on being a skincare owner. Like this was not the plan. I started making products for myself in high school, and I just continued to like make products for myself. I just loved kind of like doing my witchy things, I would call it, and making these little elixirs and potions. And for years, people would ask me, literally, some people without even knowing my last name. And I still get asked this, like, it's so funny on TikTok, people that don't like know me, they'll say, "What's your golden secret?" And I'm like, well, and I just tag the golden secrets. I actually have a lot of golden secrets. So this thing just kind of kept happening, where people would ask me like, "What's that scent?" or "What's that thing you're wearing on your skin?" or like, "What do you use on your skin?" And I was like, this is kind of crazy. And at the time I started a blog called The Golden Secrets, where I just started sharing anything and everything that had helped me, anything with the yoga. And like, we were just talking about breathing exercises, or skincare that I loved. And I really felt like at the time, there wasn't a lot of wisdom about holistic health. It was still perceived as like a very hippy dippy woo-wah wee-wah type of thing. And I loved being able to explain it in like layman's term to like just regular people. And when I say regular people, I always think of where I'm from. I'm from Chicago in the Midwest. And like, I would go home and I would share with my family and friends like the new things that I was into, and they would be like, "What?" So I had a lot of practice on like how to like talk to these types of people that like thought all this stuff was so like woo-wah. And eventually a friend of mine who I really admire in business, he said, "You have to start bottling that stuff. Like every time I'm with you, somebody's asking you what you're using on your skin or what that scent is." And it's really interesting because I got kind of protective when he said that. I was like, "Ooh, I don't want to share this stuff. Like these are literally my golden secrets." And then I thought about it and I prayed on it, and I was like, you know what? Like some of these products have been with me for almost 20 years, and they have been through everything with me. And every time I pull out like my essential oil or I do a little ritual, it's a moment for me to check in with myself. And I was like, my gosh, I have to start sharing these. Like this has helped me so much in my life. I have to share it. Like that's what my whole thing is about. So I just started sharing. And I think because my background had come from, I made a living as a modeling model my entire life. I was kind of jaded with like marketing. I was the face of many other companies, and I kind of saw like how things worked and how there was such a disconnect between who owned the company and who was the face of the company. And the person who was the face of the company never actually used the product and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, we gotta change this. Like I've been making these products for myself forever. I've been using them myself, and I wanted it to be less vain. Like, yes, you are getting the most organic, beautiful, ancient products from Mother Nature, but also I created affirmations for every product. Louise Hay was a huge mentor in my life, as I'm sure many people. And the way that she would have affirmations for everything, I just thought it was such a great way to rewire the brain. And I was like, as women, especially, every time we go to do something, we're probably looking in the mirror and pointing everything negative. What if we took that opportunity and said something positive to ourselves? So it was really important to me, if I was going to do it right. I didn't want it to be solely on vanity and everything from seed to skin, like, has to be done right and done a certain way.
I really appreciate your perspective and intentionality with that, because you're absolutely right. Usually, what we're putting on, whether it's makeup or something, it can feel like we're fixing something or covering who we are. But I was just telling you before we started recording, I've been using your gorgeous face oil, and it feels so like rich and nourishing and like a gift to my skin. So it doesn't feel like makeup or anything like I'm fixed. It's just like nourishment. So I feel that through your product in an
I
interesting
love
way.
when people tell me like they feel the love. I'm like, yes, like I feel like there's like a little piece of me in everyone's bathroom.
Yeah,
I'm like, I love
totally. Yeah,
it.
and it came with this gorgeous like magazine and booklet that you'd made. So I just love how you put together your brand. So now that you're talking about Louise Hay, I'm curious to know about, who else, what other teachers have influenced you? Anything that you're studying right now in particular that's sparking your curiosity or your growth in this moment?
I'm reading something called, I can't remember who wrote it though, The Electric Body, like how our body's electric, which is kind of fascinating. Um, nothing that I can think of like too much. I'm always like, I love looking into like older things. When I found Louise Hay, I think that was like pretty soon after um I was going through all of that stuff, like emotionally, and I was just diving into anything psychology, and like so fascinated with how the brain works and how we can actually rewire our brain through positive affirmations, and how we're wired for the negative naturally. And it's like we have to work that muscle just like you would have to work a bicep. I just thought that that was so fascinating. Um, but yeah, I'm always kind of trying to learn and
Mhm.
stay a humble student.
Totally. I remember reading Louise Hay for the first time not that long ago, and I was like, "Oh, she's the OG. Everybody's just kind of parroting her.
Oh yeah,
It's
she's
all
the OG.
here."
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
There's a
all
lot
here.
of OGs, and people have gotten really creative with sharing the message. Like there was someone, but I forgot the guy. Um I'm drawing a blank. Uh
Not Joe
anyways.
Dispenza. No.
Yes, Joe
Yeah.
Dispenza. There
Uh-huh.
was a guy before Joe Dispenza in the early 1920s that
Mm.
is literally Joe Dispenza, like to a T. And I'm like, he took his message and shared it so people could understand it. So I think there's a lot of that going on. And it's like, I think it's amazing as long as you're able to share it and people get it and.
Right. Like digestible. And I like that
Yeah.
you are talking about psychology too, and feeling like you have more of an empowered stance in your life, and where you can kind of take life by the reins in your own way. Cause I think that mixing that with spirituality seems to be where the magic seems to happen. So what other tools did you bring in to start to overcome some of the discomfort that you'd been experiencing early on, and some of the suffering? How did that begin to unravel more and more? Are there any other practices that you began to instill, like mindset techniques or relationship to spirit? Like what came through for you?
I mean, I think yoga was just like a constant practice. It was like, I remember one of my yoga teachers when I first started practicing said, when you don't want to go to yoga is when you need to go most. And I took that to heart because like every day I didn't want to go. And I was
Hmm.
like, well, that means I need it. And just being mindful and aware of like where my brain is going and kind of rerouting it, that mindfulness. Um, and then also, I take this thread throughout my entire life, but I feel like when I was younger, I thought that at some point I would get to an age or I would get to a time in my life where things would just be perfect and like all my problems would be gone, or I think that there's like this, I don't know, at least for me, I thought at some point I would like figure it out. And then I realized that like the lessons never end. Like we just have to become better students. And it's like through the spirituality, through the psychology, and like just learning how to shift our perspective and take challenging moments as an opportunity to like practice everything we've learned, and I try and like look at things that way instead of being like, woe is me, why is this happening? Instead, I'm like, okay, all right, universe. Okay, I hear you. What do I got to do?
Yeah, that mindset right there changes everything, doesn't it? Because you can get thrown an obstacle or a challenge, and instead of like crippling underneath it, there's like a weird excitement sometimes that I find that comes up. It's like, okay, this is clearly here to integrate. And I know on the other side of this, I'm going to be at a new level, which is kind of like exciting, but that certainly takes practice. And I love that you're also touching on that beautiful reminder, like when you don't want to show up is when you most need to show up. But how did you develop like that discipline, I guess, to do it? Like to just show up and just do it. Like, do you know what I mean? Like some people come to me and they're like, I just can't sit down and do my first podcast. And it's like, okay, let's work on the discipline. Let's work on the presence to get you there. Like what enables you to show up for your work, for your practice?
Yeah. Two things come to mind. I mean, I think first of all, I'm like really hard on myself. I've always been that way, but I grew up as a ballerina, which is like the most disciplinary. Everything is so regimen and it's consistent and it's the same thing over and over and over. And it's just like, I think that was really ingrained in me. And I kind of got like a high from it actually. After a period of time, I was like, this was my jam. And I think that I've taken that into all aspects of my life, like the foundations that I've learned from that. But also like what you said about like when other people can't do certain things, like they can't sit down to do a podcast. I don't know. I've noticed like the older that I get that I hear that a lot from people. Like, how do I do this or how do I do that? And I feel like if you keep wondering like how, then maybe that's not the right path for you. Like maybe there's a different path for you that like lights you up where like you don't have to ask for help and you just figure it out, and I've always kind of been like that. Like I just follow like what lights me up and then I just figure it out.
100%. Oh, I love that. I was just speaking.
And I don't in a lot of things.
Oh, there you are. Sorry, you just cut out for 1 second.
Oh,
I'll cut that out.
Yeah, I was like, oh, you froze.
No, I absolutely love that. I was interviewing Joel, a so-called Joe, this morning, and he was saying the same sentiment. I was asking him a similar question about discipline, and he was like, it doesn't feel arduous to me because I love it. Like it's not this like hard thing. I'm not like being crushed by the pain of doing something. So when you genuinely love it and understand that the process is leading to something greater, it's easier. Speaking of this, speaking of ballet, modeling, being in that world, did you ever struggle with body image or self-consciousness or comparison or anything? Did that come up for you at all?
I'm so lucky because I had a lot of people around me that did. All my friends, I saw them struggle, and I track it back to my mom. Like my mom was also a ballerina and a model, and never, not once did I hear her talk bad about herself. She's a Libra, she's goddess rising. I mean, she's Venus walking, she's very feminine, and she always just carried herself with so much grace and never talked bad about herself. And I think that just like laid a foundation for me. And I think because I was a dancer my entire life and I have my mom's genetics, like I never really